Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. Today is Tuesday, March 10th, and we're doing this is our daily NBA show that we'll be doing with Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. Little tweak, a little change. We're going to do it in two segments. The first segment is going to be just a general analysis of the card, and then our second segment is going to be the picks, which have been successful overall. Joe Duffy, thanks for being back with us.
Thank you for having me, St. Peter.
All right, Joe Duffy, let's get your general analysis of the card here. A lot of interesting situations. The first one that's most interesting to me is maybe Cleveland and Dallas, right? Both on the side and the total. Dallas Mavericks, in case people haven't noticed, 11 straight unders and 420-1 over their last 25. Now, is that a statistical anomaly? Maybe, I don't know, but it's there. That's what happened over the last 25 games. And the Cavs, 2-7 over their last 9. Total right now is 201. Hasn't gone down that much. So my first thought on this one was, all right, maybe it's just one of these knee-jerk picks that could wind up biting me in the ass, but under 201?
Yeah, no, it would seem like a pretty good pick to me for sure, especially as I said, Cleveland, I think they're starting to turn up the intensity. We're now getting towards crunch time, and as I always say, there's almost no debate. Intensity is going to show up more on defense than it is on the offensive end. So I do expect for Cleveland probably from this point on to be, general lean towards an underplay. So I certainly can't disagree with that at all.
All right, and then also maybe Cleveland on the side. The Cavs lost 2 in a row ATS, but of course before that they had been rolling against the spread. They had been 6-2 against the spread over their previous 8, and their last ATS loss was a tough scheduling spot for them, and they lost their last game by just 1 point. They were 11-point favorite. They won by 10 as an 11-point favorite. Dallas struggling. We know about them. 1-6 against spread. 1-5 against spread over their last 6. The line's gone up, but maybe this is a spot where Cleveland rolls again and covers the 4.5 with ease. What do you think?
And I always say the quality teams, and this happens in the NBA, we saw with the Spurs for years that when they're off of a loss, they don't just take out their frustration so much the next game, but they have a chip on their shoulder for a few games. And that was a big loss against Atlanta on Friday night, and I think that certainly lit a fire underneath them. Cleveland was definitely an early public play. I see as of right now, 69% of the public still likes them, which is the biggest public play. And of course, as I say time and time again, the public does tend to lean towards those road favorites, and as a result, home dogs after a rough start. Home dogs have actually been pretty good as of late, 65, 43, and 6 after an 82 and 119 start. But, none of that information is that overwhelming. It's not a huge contrarian play. So I would probably have to agree with you there because, as I said, I think Cleveland still with a little chip on their shoulder from getting slapped around by Atlanta. And I think they're still in a little bit of a statement mode.
Okay, so you would generally agree with Cleveland then?
Yes.
All right. And then the other one, another game that's interesting, the Knicks and Utah. Again, both on the side and the total. Now, Utah has gone under in 9 of their last 10, and the opener was 184, and I picked that one, and I did bet it, and I was planning on maybe giving it as a pick in this show, but now I'm seeing it's 179.5. I don't know about that one. And then the Knicks, Utah's not world beaters. The Knicks are 14-point underdogs, but they played Denver on the road, and they're on a back-to-back. Is Denver world beaters? No, less world beaters than Utah, and they got blasted by 28 at Denver. So are the Knicks maybe an auto fade, even as a double-digit underdog, even against anyone right now?
And it's always interesting, is going from one thin air city to another, is it a case where maybe the Knicks, their bodies have adjusted a little bit, because we know that when teams or Olympians or whatever, when they play in the thin air, they like to train in it. So maybe the fact that New York played at Denver will actually help them. Utah, the Knicks are playing back-to-back 3 games in 4 days with Utah rested. Now, in that exact circumstance, Utah's 92, 70, and 6 going back quite a few years, but only 2-6 the last 8. But yeah, the Knicks, as I said, I still think that the Ewing theory is going to benefit them a little bit. They lost Carmelo Anthony, who I believe is overrated. They actually struggled without him, but I think they're starting to make some adjustments, but still the schedule maker very kind of the Jazz tonight.
All right, and then 2 more games I quickly want to touch on. The Pelicans, Anthony Davis playing awesome. The Pelicans have been weathering all kinds of injury concerns from day to day, game in and game out. Right now, they're a 2.5-point underdog, though, to the Nets. The Nets have 3 straight ATS losses, but it's a favorable scheduling spot for Brooklyn, right? They are on a rest. They're on a day off, and New Orleans is playing on a back-to-back 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 7. New Orleans clearly overall overall the superior team, both against spread and straight up. But is this a scheduling spot where you'd lean towards Brooklyn just because of that?
Not just because of that, but you put on top of what you said that they've had some of their key players out of the lineup. And I think when you're getting guys back playing those 3 games in 4 days really makes the scheduling much tougher. So New Orleans might have a little bit of chemistry issues with the problems that they've had to deal with. So the schedule maker certainly quite kind to the home team here.
And then before we get to the picks, I want to ask you about Detroit and the Lakers. You know, the Lakers have lost 5 in a row straight up, but they're 7-1 against spread over their last 8. They're not a huge underdog here, but they are getting some points, 3 or 3.5 at home against Detroit. What's your take on the Lakers here as a home underdog?
Yeah, and the line's actually going up a little bit. So I have that the line should be 2.5. And in fact, I'm not actually contradicting what I said earlier, but I'm looking at some of my live information. Now it looks like Detroit is in reality the top consensus play as we file this, but they're at 70%. And as a general rule of thumb, and we've talked about it, and I've done articles and videos explaining why contrarian plays do work, but I think the fact that if you can now get 3.5 when the line should be more like 2.5, and the contrarian information says to go with the home underdog. And as I've said, home underdogs are finally starting to do well, and you knew that the odds makers had to adjust because the public was doing pretty well betting what they like to do, those road favorites. I would lean towards the home dog there.
All right, well, it seems like we're generally in agreement. I think we've covered everything that I wanted to get to. Now let's get to part 2, the picks, Joe Duffy.